Hi, everyone. Really lovely to be here with you all today. And thank you to Lisa for inviting me to speak at your webinar. I'm joining you from Meanjin in Brisbane and respectfully acknowledge the Yagara and Turrbal people and all First Nations colleagues and friends joining us online today. My name is Amy Dellett. I work for QCOSS, the Queensland Council of Social Service. I'm the Senior Data Analyst in the Research and Policy team at QCOSS. And we also have Nadia online, our Research and Data Officer, who is online to support the webinar today as well. I'll hand it over to you, Lisa.
Thank you. So welcome everyone to the Skilling Queenslanders for Work Tender Writing series, with this webinar being focused on using data to unlock your funding. And thank you everyone for joining today. I'm Lisa Fraser, a Sector Development Officer with QCOSS, or the Queensland Council of Social Services, and I'm managing the current Skilling Queenslanders for Work tender writing series. So for QCOSS, you'll hear us today refer to the initiative as SKU or SQW. So I just want to spell that out so people know what we're talking about. So QCOSS have undertaken work in partnership with the Department of Trade, Employment and Training, or DETET, for many years now in relation to the SKU initiative. And as such, we have many resources available to you on the QCOSS website and on our YouTube channel. So if you haven't already checked these out, we encourage you to do this, as the resources cover pretty much everything you need to know about creating a strong tender application for a SKU program. So for the past 2 years, we've also been delivering this presentation as part of the series, and it's designed to assist community-based organisations with using data to within your tender applications to build the evidence base around your identified target groups, industries and community needs, and in doing so, strengthen the robustness of your applications. So this is the third year we're offering this presentation, and again, I guess we really appreciate that for many organisations, you may not have personnel within your organisation that has particular skills in using data sets or incorporating data to build specific evidence base. So before we move on, I would like to acknowledge the Department of Trade, Employment and Training for funding the SKU initiative and QCOSS's SKU tender writing series. Now to some further housekeeping before we get into the content. So you'll receive a post-event email, and this is going to include a recording of today's session, a copy of the presentation slides, links to the resources, including a short guide to using data to strengthen your application and frequently asked questions, and links to some of the data sources referred to throughout the session today. As I indicated before, there's a lot of content we'll be moving through, so please pop your questions in the chat, and Nadia will be monitoring the chat, and I'll be monitoring at times, and we'll endeavour to respond to your questions. We'll also, if time permits, have a segment at the end to answer questions. So before we begin, I would like to acknowledge First Nations peoples and country. So QCOSS acknowledges the historical injustice of colonisation and dispossession of First Nations peoples and its ongoing impact and legacies. We're committed to reconciliation, self-determination and opportunity for First Nations peoples as integral steps in achieving equality, opportunity and well-being for all Queenslanders. I'm joining you from Meanjin or Brisbane and respectfully acknowledge the Yagara and Turrbal peoples and all First Nations colleagues and friends joining us today. And please feel free to join in the chat and in acknowledging country that you're joining us from today, I should say. Thank you. So we'll turn to the content of today's session with a brief overview. So we know that evidencing your proposals with data is what can set your application apart from others in what is an increasingly competitive funding initiative. So it's worth noting at the outset that much of what we're going to share with you today, you can apply to any tender or grant application, obviously other than the SKU-specific information that we provide. So we're going to look at 4 key areas relating to the use of data to establish your evidence base for your application. We'll spend some time on each of these topic areas throughout the presentation. And these areas include, as indicated on the slide, why it is essential to put together an evidence-based funding proposal for your SKU tender or any other tender or grant application, and why using current data is really important in funding proposals. Amy is going to explore some of the open data sources available to you and that are most frequently used for writing proposals, such as the Skilling Queenslanders for Work tender application. We're going to talk about using data and interpreting that data, and Amy's going to discuss how you might do that, how you might contextualize that data. And we will go through how to use data or integrate this in a funding application and use an example proposal to highlight how you might go about doing this. So I'm going to kick off by talking about the first area, which is on the slide, top left-hand corner, using data. So before I hand over to Amy to explore the three other areas outlined. So our aim by the end of the presentation today is you'll have strategies that are going to help you to demonstrate your understanding of the target group you intend to provide services to and the barriers that they are facing to employment. That you're able to demonstrate the need for your project in your community. The aim will be for your use of the data to take your project proposal from this sounds like a good idea to this is a really compelling proposal and one that the department see as important and really want to fund. So we should and consider resourcing that proposal, This is how you want funders to be viewing your proposal. And consider that, for each region, they may be viewing up to 100 or so applications. So yours really does need to stand out. You'll learn how to support your statements with reliable information to make your case, as this shows the funder that you really understand the specific issue that you're trying to solve and that you have a good understanding of the target group of participants that you're seeking to engage and provide wraparound supports. So why is the use of data important? Data helps you identify the problem and brings you closer to developing an accurate theory or hypotheses for solving that problem. We know that many community-based organisations across Queensland know their communities really well and have strong ideas about particular solutions to issues and that are appropriate to your communities. Often community-based organisations are very well positioned to provide anecdotal evidence about the types of Skilling Queenslanders for Work programs that would be beneficial to the target groups within your communities. So having the capacity to provide data to support these ideas enables you to get very specific about the issues that you've identified and the potential solutions to these issues. So the use of relevant and appropriate data will support you to demonstrate the evidence of the project need in your community, your understanding of the needs of your specific target group, such as their socioeconomic position and how these relate to specific employment barriers that your target group are facing. Data can provide backing for your support intervention plans and associated budget asks. Using data also provides you with a great baseline for evaluating your project, the effectiveness and impact of your project. And this can be particularly relevant if you're engaging in similar work over the course of multiple years. So we know that some organisations provide similar supports over many years, and the use of good data can demonstrate the impact that your interventions are having over time. In addition, using data in the development of your project idea ensures that you're able to establish and potentially re-establish the currency of your project, given that the needs can change over time. So, for example, what worked well in a community 5 years ago is likely to need a level of tweaking now, or it may no longer be a target group need or industry need identified in your community. So when preparing your tender application, you need to develop responses to the 5 assessment criteria detailed in the DETET SKU guide for applying for funding, which I'll stress now, if you haven't read, you absolutely need to read. And I'll pop a link into the chat for that after I finish talking. So we'll also look at one example of the types of questions the SKU proposal needs to answer, focusing on the SKU criterion 2, servicing community and industry needs. So your responses to the selection criteria need to show the project's capacity to achieve the short-term, long-term community benefits. You need to be evidencing your community presence. You need to speak to what the community benefits will be from your program and what level of need there is for the project in your local community, how the project aligns to local labour market needs and employment trends, for example, participation rates or underemployment rates, unemployment rates or industry growth, how the project is going to address these needs. So DTET expects the community-based organisation to have researched their local labour market needs and be responding to these needs in your proposal. So we understand that as community-based organisations, your expertise is often understanding the needs of your identified target group exceptionally well. However, it's not necessarily a matter of course to be across interpreting data of local labour force needs. So this is where this webinar is designed to be of value to you. So up on the slide, you'll see there are 5 assessment criteria that you'll need to respond to as part of your SKU application. We're not going to explore all of these today, other than to discuss that there are different types of data that you'll draw upon and utilise to evidence your responses to different assessment criteria. The assessment criteria are listed down the left-hand side of the screen, and on the right, we've identified examples of the types of data that you might draw upon to evidence your responses to the associated assessment criteria. And these are just suggestions. You don't need to necessarily draw on data for all of your responses. Perhaps, for example, the cost value for money, assessment criteria 5, you may not draw on data, external sources of data, for example. So you can see that assessment criteria 2, which is servicing community and industry needs, draws largely on external data sources. These external data sources will be the focus of the data gathered in the presentation today and the demonstrations. So I won't go through each of these. I can let you have a bit of a look, but you'll also receive these slides in the post-event email, so you can look back on any of the slides. So we've put together a scenario, and we're keeping this scenario relatively simple for the purposes of stepping through some of the data we would use to evidence this example proposal. So it's a fictional scenario and draws on general features relating to a possible SKU proposal. So I'll just talk through it. The Greater Whitsunday Incorporated is a community organisation primarily delivering services to young people in Mackay. It has a good sense of what's going on for young people and their needs, and they're concerned about there being limited employment opportunities for young people and also challenges related to young people accessing housing. Greater Whitsunday Incorporated have given consideration to delivering a Certificate 1 in construction through the Work Skills Traineeship program, and think this would benefit both young people and the broader community. And if you're not already familiar with the Work Skills Traineeship, it's one of the 6 programs under the Skilling Queenslanders for Work initiative. So to support this idea, the organisation will need to evidence a number of things in their proposal. They need to establish that the relevant demographic, 15 to 24-year-olds, actually exists in their community, that there are young people who are not engaged in education or employment in their community in that age bracket, and that filling positions in the construction industry is a current need in the Mackay community, and that this need is not being met. So with this scenario in mind and the need to establish the evidence-based data to support the proposal, I'm going to hand over to Amy, who's going to step you through how you can go about establishing your evidence base for this scenario with the use of relevant and appropriate data. And just a reminder that this session is being recorded, so Amy's going to go through a lot of data and demonstrations today, and you'll be able to look back on the recording if you want to if you need to revisit some of this information. So don't feel that you've got to take copious amounts of notes. Okay, thank you, Amy.
Okay, thanks, Lisa. I might just share my slides if that's okay. When we're talking about Mackay, we're also talking about the Whitsunday region as well in the examples that I'm going to share with you. So for your grant writing, we're going to go through 4 simple steps to use data effectively. So step 1 is really about exploring your geography. Step 2 is finding data on your cohort or target group or population, which we refer to as generally as like the denominator. And then step 3 is choosing indicators you want to report on. So what you want to measure, and that is generally your numerator. And step 4 summarizes the data. So to work through these steps, we're going to show you practical tools and resources and data sets you can use in your applications. So firstly, introducing QCOSS Data Point. So we've released this data tool a couple of years ago. So QCOSS Data Point is a central location where community services staff can access up-to-date data that is relevant and meaningful to the community services sector in Queensland. Key data sources, data visualizations, and data tools have been selected that are user-friendly and publicly available to support the data capability and use of data in the not-for-profit sector. Data sets are easy to navigate and are categorised across QCOSS policy focus areas, including areas of interest to grant writers. So these include housing, youth justice, living affordability, women's equality, children and young people, and community services more broadly. We also have an additional search category, which is labour force and employment, specifically to support the SKU program. So I'm going to show you the data point in a moment. I'll just have that on my screen for you now. So data point is intuitive and it's user-friendly, and it's specifically been designed for the community sector to improve access to and navigation of data. You can find QCOSS Data Point by locating the QCOSS website, which I'm on here, and you can click under our work, which is at the top here, the tab. And then under the Our Work, you can scroll down and find this data section, and then you can click on Data Point. So I already have it open on my screen as the tab here. Close out of that. The interface, this is the interface of Data Point, which updates each time we edit or add a new data source. From this main screen, you can see you can filter your searches by using the search by category function up the top left here, and you can select the policy area of interest. Or you can also filter your searches by using the search by agency filter, as well as also filtering the search using the plain text search and entering a keyword. So also clicking the link or the logo will take you directly to the data source to explore. So now you know about Data Point, we're going to walk through our suggested steps to effective data use using Data Point as our guide to find the information that we want to know for our example community. So the first step is to explore your geography. And the first tool I'm going to show you is called ABS Maps. ABS stands for the Australian Bureau of Statistics, and this tool doesn't actually contain any kind of data. It is a way to think about data about your service delivery area or your footprint or the community where you deliver services to. It's about location and geography and what the ABS refers to as boundaries. So before we start the example, I thought I'd give a quick overview on statistical areas. So this visual represents the Australian Statistical Geography Standard, Edition 3, or the ASGS. And these geographies are the way in which community data is released by government agencies and accessed by everyone else, and also people within government as well. So the ASGS provides users with an integrated set of standard areas that can be used for analysing, visualising and integrating statistics produced by the ABS and other organisations. And so you can see in this visual, there are ABS structures on the left-hand side and also ABS, non-ABS structures on the right-hand side. There is mesh blocks, and they're the smallest geographical area defined by the ABS. They're designed as geographic building blocks rather than as areas for the release of statistics themselves. So generally, the community data that you want to focus on are statistical area 2s, statistical area 3s, statistical area 4s, and also the non-ABS structures, the local government areas as well. You'll also notice that there are postal areas, and so some of you, or many of you, will be familiar with postal areas or postcodes, but there are a number of issues with postal areas when it comes to data, including some postal areas that go across different states outside of Queensland, and so I'd suggest and recommend avoiding using postal area data if you can. Any smaller geography area, so generally smaller than a statistical area 2, for example, SA1, so statistical area I also refer to as SA. So statistical area 1 or mesh blocks are generally not available when it comes to data. Population numbers may be released for these geographies, but when you're looking at data like employment or income support measures, no data like that will be available at that smaller area level. So just looking at this visual now, so going backwards, I guess, from right to left on the slide here, there's the SA2s that I've visualized using the next tool that we're going to look at. SA2s generally have a population between 3,000 and 25,000, with an average of about 10,000 people. They're similar to what you would consider a suburb or a locality boundary. SA2s in remote and regional areas, like you'll see on the map, generally have smaller populations than those in urban areas. And in Queensland, there are 546 SA2s. For SA3s, they're designed to have populations between 30,000 and 100,000 people. However, the creation of meaningful regional areas takes priority over the population criteria. So as a result, there are some SA3s with populations above 130,000, whereas there are others below 30,000. SA3s are often functional areas of regional towns and cities with a population in excess of 20,000, or clusters of related suburbs around urban commercial and transport hubs within major urban areas. So in Queensland, there are 82 SA3s. For SA4s, most have a population above 100,000 people to provide sufficient sample size for labour force estimates, for example. In regional areas, SA4s tend to have smaller populations of between 100,000 to 300,000 people. In cities, SA4s tend to have larger populations of 300,000 to 500,000 people. In Queensland, there are 19 SA4s. And lastly, we have the LGAs, or the local government areas, on the left-hand side. They're an ABS approximation of gazetted local government boundaries as defined by each state and territory local government department. They are built from mesh blocks, but you also would like to note that LGA structures can change over time. And so in Queensland, we have 78 local government areas. So if I jump back into Data Point, what we're going to do is use this as an example to find the first tool that we're going to look at, which is ABS Maps. So in Data Point, we're going to, you can search this a few ways, and you can also see that it automatically comes up as the first data set listed, but it might not always be the case, depending on the updates that we make to the tool. So you can search by agency and find Australian Bureau of Statistics, for example. You can also search under the search category and select general statistics. And also in the plain text search, you might like to search maps, for example. And you don't actually have to use all three of these search functions. You can actually just use one and it should generally come up. So we found the ABS Maps tool. We've also shared the link to the direct data source in the chat for you as well, if you'd like to follow along with us today. It's a really useful visual tool to help our understanding of geography structures. So I'm going to open this ABS Maps. Okay, so this is the online interactive map tool. I'm just going to scroll down a little bit so it's you can see it clearly on the screen. So you can zoom in and click on a particular area of interest if you're hovering within the map, such as how I'm doing now, and we've zoomed into Charleville there. And you can zoom in and out as you need to. You can also click on a particular area of interest. And it will bring up the code and the name. Alternatively, you can use this search function for a region or by code or name to search for a street address or a suburb. So maps quickly give you a sense of the size of each geography you're using a simple search. This information will help you get specific about your community. So in this example, I'm going to search based on Whitsunday and select the search, or you can also select enter. So Whitsunday, you can zoom in and out to make sure you've got the right location, which is in Queensland, so that's correct. And so we're going to show you how to use this tool to work out the different regions or names of the regions to help you with your data analysis. So we're going to find the name of the local government area, the SA4, the SA3, and the SA2 for Whitsunday. So we're going to apply what I just showed you in the previous slides to what we now know about geography structures and explore this a bit further. So I've searched for Whitsunday. Then you want to apply for the apply the first region selection of interest, which will be local government area. So I search down here and I select the local government area 2025, which is under the non-ABS structures, if you'll remember that. And it then shows us the boundaries. So how I created the screenshots in the previous slide was just taking screenshots by selecting the appropriate boundaries that I wanted to display on the map. So what you can do now is scroll across to the area. If you lose your place and you think you're not in the right area again, you can always search back and it will tell you I found Whitsunday again. So clicking on the dot, so the area that's selected here, you can now see some geographic information. It will come up with the geography type of your search, which is in this case, it's local government area that we selected in the drop-down box. And then it will tell you the name of the local government area, which is Whitsunday. It also then tells you the code, which is 37340. If you do need to know that information, it's a unique reference point for that geography specifically. So you can see Whitsunday local government area is this region highlighted in red. It's quite a large geographical area that extends north past Bowen, which you can see here if I zoom in a bit. There's also, it goes southwest, but not as far as Moranbah or Nebo. And Whitsunday local government area cuts off on the east coast and doesn't include surrounding areas, regions like Mackay or Charters Towers. If we scroll out, it's not including Charters Towers or Ayr. So now we know the local government name, which sometimes is intuitive and sometimes it isn't. We're going to apply the exact same steps to find out the statistical area for name in which Whitsunday sits within. So again, I'm going to leave the search function as Whitsunday, but I might refresh that just in case I lose my place. And again, you may want to zoom out and then apply the first region selection, which will, in this instance will be statistical area 4 or SA4. And then you can see that the boundaries now change. Again, you can click on the blue dot with your mouse, and that says the area that we've found is the statistical area level 4, and the name is now Mackay Isaac Whitsunday. So you can see that those changes have applied to your search. You can also see the code for Whitsunday is 312. So you can also see here that the SA4 now includes Mackay, whereas previously the local government area didn't. So it now also includes Moranbah and Nebo, but not Ayr. And you can start to understand the importance of the statistical geographies and how we use and understand data in this way. So another useful function of this tool is that you can compare two different regions. So you, for example, for your community of interest, which we're going to keep as Whitsunday, is the local government area the same as the SA4 or is it different? Is the local government area a smaller or larger geography than the SA4 for this region? And you can use the map tool to actually test this out, which is where the choose a second boundary type selection comes in handy. So you can overlay the local government area and the statistical area 4 and zoom into your area of interest and see if they are the same or whether they're slight differences that they overlap other communities by. So we're going to do this now. So using our first selection as local government area. So again, we'll select that one. And then the second selection is going to be statistical area 4. So you can now see the change and the difference between the two geographies. So our first selection is the local government area, and that's in red. And then the second selection is just the statistical area 4, which is in blue. If we zoom out, we can now know that the local government area is smaller than the statistical area 4. You can also do this if you want to compare the size of the SA4s and the size of the SA3s or statistical area 3s. So what you would do there is then change the first box to be statistical area 3. And so you can see that the statistical area 3 is the red regions, and then you keep the statistical area 4 as blue. The SA3 is the red line again, and the SA4 is the blue. If we repeat these searches, we can also search, for example, the first box as statistical area 2, which is that smaller suburb level data or region perspective. And then the second box could be statistical area 3. So again, the SA2s are in red and the SA3s are in blue. And you can see that there are 3. If I zoom in closer to where Whitsunday is, hopefully you can see that on your screen in detail enough. So you can see there's actually a region here, which is an SA2, another region here, SA2, and then a bigger region here, which is a SA2. But if you're actually unsure, again, click on the map. So when I click on that, it will tell me the statistical area 2 that I've clicked is now Proserpine, and it's part of the statistical area 3, which is Whitsunday. If I click into this other red region, it now tells me that that region is Airlie Whitsundays, which is a different SA2, but it's still within the Whitsunday SA3 area. And again, lastly, we can click on Cape Conway, and that's the statistical area 2, which is also included in the Whitsunday statistical area 3. So as you look at the data points for the regions, you can decide whether you want to include or exclude these regions for your grant writing application. These data regions give you flexibility to customize your particular region, to aggregate or sum your data, or disaggregate, which is breaking it down. It also will make you better aware of the limitations around data, because data may not always be available at this level of data or detail that you want. Also to note, if it is hard to tell between the colours and the outline, you can try swapping the selections. A good tip is to have the smaller geography first, which is in red. So in this case, it's the SA2, and then the bigger geography as the second selection in blue. Another thing to keep in mind is that maps can mask really small area level data too. So remember to use the zoom functionality so that you can really understand the full picture. And if you're ever unsure as to what region the area fits in, click on the map and the blue dot will tell you exactly where it's located, what you're looking at. If you do want to be more exact than this, it's often useful to have geospatial information systems available where you can overlay all your data against specific geographic boundaries. But I think generally this mapping tool meets most of your general needs in terms of understanding geographies through a data lens. So if we go back to the PowerPoint now, so this slide shows the 4 different ABS geography types to refer to for the Whitsunday community example. I found this information by using the ABS Maps tool that we just worked out and identifying the names of these geography structures for Whitsunday. I used the search box, search for Whitsunday, selected the geography I wanted to know from the drop-down box, and then I clicked on the blue dot for Whitsunday and it tells me the name of the SA2, SA3, SA4 and LGA, whatever information I'd like to know. In this way, we can really easily see the way that data is captured and how it is defined in various ways, depending on where people live in the community. You may notice that when you're exploring the tool, that the LGA and SA3 for Mackay, for example, looks exactly the same. And that's verified through using and looking at data. But for Whitsunday, it's not the same geography. So this is important to keep in mind. So in our Whitsunday example, the community data to focus on is the statistical area 2. And you may remember that there was 3 SA2s called Proserpine, Cape Conway and Airlie Whitsundays. The statistical area 3 name was Whitsunday. The statistical area 4 name was Mackay Isaac Whitsunday. And the local government area was Whitsunday. So remember, even though the names are very similar, the geography size and areas differ significantly. And the example back on the previous slide for Whitsunday showcases those differences. It's really important to get the geography right to collect and analyse the right data. So what area should Greater Whitsunday Incorporated use? The Mackay Isaac Whitsunday SA4 is a large geography or region. The SA2 suburb level data are probably a bit too small, but data could be combined or aggregated. Whitsunday local government area or Whitsunday SA3 is probably the best depending on their service delivery footprint, but a lot of the time it will depend on what data is available for you to access. Also consider regions of funded service delivery areas outside of these. So for example, there's primary health network areas, there's child protection areas, there's state development and infrastructure regions, there's resource regions, housing service areas, electorates. There are lots of different region types. I've just showcased the 4 most common ones that we use. So going back to our 4 steps, we've explored our geography. The next step is step 2, which is to find the data on your cohort, target group or populations. How many people live in your community? And then also the target group for your program. In this case, it's 15 to 24-year-olds. It's also good to know the total population, and then you can work out what proportion they comprise of. If you wanted to look at different subsets of your community, for example, only females or the population of First Nations communities, then you would look at that in this step as well. I'll hand it back to you, Lisa.
Thank you, Amy. So as we've already indicated, it's essential for you to identify the data regarding the specific target group or the participants that you intend to provide services to under the SKU program that you're putting together. And we need to be mindful when looking at population data, as there are multiple uses of the term population in statistics. So you want to be aware of what constitutes a population in any given data source. So there will be definitions provided by the tool that you use, and it's important to ensure that you're using the appropriate population data relating to the cohort you intend to represent. So that may be for a population of region or area or town, all people within a given age group or all people within a particular target group. And the target groups identified largely by the department include women re-entering the workforce, First Nations peoples, young people, mature age job seekers, people facing barriers such as mental health, people with disability, Australian Defence Force veterans and their families, people recently released from prison, people with from culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds, people facing domestic and family violence, or other target groups facing barriers to underemployment or employment that also meet the SKU eligibility criteria. It may also mean people of interest to a particular research question. So, for example, Queensland residents with a particular disability or parents of pre-school age children, etc. Thanks, Amy.
Okay, so I'm going to give you a quick tour of some reliable data sources to help you find the cohort or target group information for your application. There are several different tools you can use to find this information. These are 5 of them, but there are others. If the information isn't exactly what you're after, then try looking at the other tools. In these profiling tools, you can find other data based on gender, age, Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander status, for example. It's really a matter of searching through and finding the information that you're looking for. So we've selected these sources because they're quick and relatively easy to use, and also incorporate a visual component of the data too when you select the geography of interest. So hopefully that makes a little more sense now from the first activity that we went through. So for the Whitsunday example, I'm going to be using the second reference source data here, which is the 2021 census, all persons quick stats. And the third referenced data source, which is the Queensland Regional Profile tool, and I'll show you the difference between the two tools. So we're going to go back into Data Point, which, apologies, I'll just go back to where I can access that. Might be more helpful if I just go through Google. Okay, so we're back in Data Point. We're going to search by agency, which is the Australian Bureau of Statistics, which is here. You could also search under general statistics category, or you can use the plain text search and search quick stats. So we'll scroll down, and the second resource is quick stats here. So we want to find the number of people in Whitsunday and the number of people in Whitsunday who are 15 to 24 years of age. So we know our population of interest, and we want to know the total population so we can also work out the percentage as well. So Quick Stats provides high-level snapshots and summary tables of an area's key statistics or characteristics, such as family makeup, age demographics, engagement in education, and cultural diversity. So for this example, I'm going to show you the Quick Stats that gives me a breakdown for the Mackay, Isaac, Whitsunday, SA4 region. So what we're going to do is search for Whitsunday. And you can see here it comes up with many of the suggestions, and these should look familiar now because they're the same, the geographies that we've been referring to. For example, SA3, there's statistical area 2, local government areas, and we're going to select this first one, which is the SA4 data. So it shows you on the map where it's based. You can also search again for the local government area, the SA3s, so you have a comparison as well. And I've included this data in these slide handouts as well, so you can refer back to them. So if you scroll down, this is now the data for the Mackay, Isaac, Whitsunday, SA4 region. You can see the total population for people is 180,894. And what we're going to look for is the age group breakdowns. So under the age table, we've found here, we're going to look for the 15 to 19 years. And I might just scroll in closer so you can actually see that really in detail. So there's 10,398 persons in the Mackay-Isaac Whitsunday SA4 region. And also then they make up 5.7% of the total SA4 population. And then we also want to look at the 20 to 24 year age group. And that indicates that there's 10,543 20 to 24 year olds. And that's 5.8% of the region population. And so what you do is you sum those two figures together, which make up the 15 to 24-year-old population count. So that's 20,946. As I mentioned, I also wanted to know the population, the total population data, which is at the top here. I can also scroll down to find the page around, oh, sorry, I scrolled up already, so I did that. So when I calculate the proportion of the population, there's 11.6% of the population for that region aged 15 to 24 years. And I calculated that figure myself. I took the 20,946 data as the numerator, which is the 15 to 24 year age group. And then I divided it by the total population, which is the 180,894 to get that 11.6% population figure. And then again, you can do the same for any of the various regions or geographies that you're interested in. So when I go back to my slides here, you can see that this slide shows the data that we just found for the Whitsunday region. So for the SA4, we have the 10,398 15 to 19 year olds and the 10,543 for the 20 to 24 year olds. And when we sum those together, we get the 20,946 people aged 15 to 24 years. And so I've completed this in the slides for the SA4, also the relevant SA3. So you'll see these here for Whitsunday SA3, there's Bourne Basin North SA3, and there's also the Mackay SA3. I also completed this for the local government area region and also for Queensland as well. So this next slide shows the same data that we found in the demo for Whitsunday, but also includes then that calculation of the percentage. So it's saying 20,946 people in the youth age group, the 15 to 24 year olds, divided by the 180,894 for the total population to get that 11.6% population figure. Okay, so moving on to the next tool. So census data, which was the focus for that demonstration, is a really rich and reliable source of information for your applications. However, as you'll be aware, it's only captured every 5 years. So the last census data is from 2021, and we're now in 2025. So the further time we move away from the census, the less accurate and representative of communities it becomes. So I'm going to show you now an additional tool that contains population data for Queensland regions that's updated with the data that is updated with data that reports on the estimated resident population, or ERP. And that's the official measure of Australians' population based on the concept of usual residents. It refers to all people, regardless of nationality or citizenship, who usually live in Australia, with the exception of foreign diplomatic personnel and their families. So I'll show you that in the next data point demonstration. If I go back to data point here, we can search now by a different agency, which is Queensland Treasury. You can find that here. You can see that there's 8 data sources listed against Queensland Treasury. You can also search under the category search under general statistics, or you can use the plain search text, and I'm going to search regional here. And you can see it's the first one that comes up as well, and it's called the Queensland Regional Profiles. I'm going to click in it and show you the tool. So for this example, I'm going to show you how to use the Queensland Regional Profiles to find the population data for the different regions of interest for the community of Whitsunday and its surrounding regions. So step one in the report, it actually is a great tool because it takes you through its own steps. Step one, we're going to select the report type. There's 6 different types. There's resident, time series, workforce, First Nations, women and men, and snapshot. For this example, we're going to select resident, but I also suggest exploring these other tools as well, the report types. For the region, I'm going to select the local government area, which is already selected for me. And then in this search box functionality, I'm going to look for Whitsunday. You can see that that's selected on the map. That's the correct location. And then under the selector comparison reason, I'm going to keep that as Queensland. And then in the select topics, I'm going to click on this show topics button. And you can see all of the different topics of interest that you can look through and access in terms of data. But what I'm going to focus on today is just the population data. So I'm going to clear all checked topics. And then we're going to just select the estimated resident population and also the population by age and sex. You can see that this data is updated for the 30th of June 2024. So this is more recent data than the census, which is the data that we're looking for. You can also see here that there may be other topics that you're interested in, like I mentioned. For example, there's population projections, there's migration data, country of birth, religious affiliation, family composition. There's lots of data here that may be relevant for your individual grant applications. As I mentioned, I'm just going to focus on the population data. I'm going to scroll down and then I'm going to select the output type. So you can either select the PDF or the HTML. Either is okay. HTML generally works better if you want to copy and paste into an Excel spreadsheet. I'm going to select PDF and create the report. And it says it's generating and it may take up to 30 seconds to create. So you can see on my screen now, we've got the profile here. It says that the profile was generated on the 17th of September. It's for the Whitsunday local government area, which is the region that I selected. And the comparison is with Queensland. And if we scroll down, I'm going to zoom in and scroll down so you can see it more clearly. And scroll down to the 4th page, you can see the visual of the region that's selected. And I'm going to look for table 1. So this is table 1. And you can find the population data. So here we have the estimated resident population of 40,744 persons for the Whitsunday local government area region. We can also find the Queensland data. So if you look in the table, this is the repeated data for Whitsunday, the 40,744. Sorry, I'll scroll in again. And you can see the Queensland data as well, which is 5,583,000 and 5,583,833 people. So these are the total population numbers, or the ERPs. If we scroll down to the second table, we can find the data by broken down by age and sex. And we're interested in the 15 to 24-year-old age group. So this is in table 2. So here you can find the number of 15 to 24-year-olds for the Whitsunday local government area. And that number is 4,429. And that is 10.9% of the Whitsunday local government area population. We can also find the Queensland data underneath it to say there are 723,325 15 to 24-year-olds, and that they make up 13% of the population of Queensland. So the age structures for Whitsunday and Queensland when it comes to the proportion of 15 to 24-year-olds, Queensland has a larger proportion of young people compared to Whitsunday LGA. And this is also reflected in the 0 to 14-year-olds. You can see these figures here at 16.8% compared to 18% for Queensland. And then you can do this by creating another example and going back to the regional profile tool again. And you can do those for the other regions of interest. I was going to also show you the statistical area 3, but I'm going to jump through that example based on time. So you would apply the exact same process as you did for the SA4 region, for the local government area region, sorry, and do that for the SA3s and the SA4s, as well as the SA2s if you want that really small area population data as well. So I'm going to go back into our slides. So in summary, I've summarized the statistical area 3 data, not the local government data here, but the local population for the Whitsunday SA3 is aged 2,861 for the 15 to 24-year-olds. And again, we divide that by the total number of people in that specific region. So the Whitsunday SA3 region in this case, which was 25,694. And then we calculate the percentage of all persons in the Whitsunday SA3 region, and that's 11.1% compared to 13% for Queensland. So now we have found data on our cohort or target group of interest. We want to choose some key indicators to report on. This could be measures like learning or earning, or labour force and unemployment, or job seeker and youth allowance, and industry labour market projections. These data can be used as baseline data, and then when you measure changes over time, you can assess whether your project has made a difference. This step takes some time to work out exactly what best measures should be, or what the closest measures are to inform your application and project and whether it's viable. These measures are also the ones that you'd want to align to your selection criteria too, servicing community and industry needs. So some of these measures are going to not be available always for the particular cohorts you want the information for. Not all data is provided for further disaggregation, for example, breakdowns for age or gender or Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander status. So my advice again is just to try your best and pull together the data that's available and note any limitations with data availability, or look at other potential measures that may be available to be used as a proxy for what you're wanting to measure. So I'd encourage you to explore Data Point to identify other data sources, or you can reach out to QCOSS if you need additional data or guidance support. So I'm going to hand it back to you, Lisa.
Thank you, Amy. Just getting myself off mute there. So as Amy said, please, if you're struggling or you do want some guidance, reach out, and either Amy or Nadia here will be able to provide support to you and further guidance. So thinking about what it is that you are trying to demonstrate or measure, you'll be very familiar with the issues that you actually want to measure, as often that's often your day-to-day work, the issues and the particular challenges that people face, or the people you provide services to face. So, for example, you may be wanting to measure the rates of unemployment or disengagement from employment or education, or community engagement and connection, or social isolation, or the experience of particular health or social conditions such as marginalisation, disadvantage in job seeking, discrimination, or other barriers to employment or engagement that the people you're providing services to are facing. Thanks, Amy.
Okay, so I'm now going to walk you through 5 examples of data sources that you may find useful for your grant applications. These are the Queensland Labour Force or the ABS compiled data by the Queensland Treasury, which we're going to look at for unemployment and youth unemployment figures. We're also going to look at small area labour markets, or SALM, estimates of unemployment released by the Department of Employment and Workplace Relations. Also going to look at learning or earning data from FIDU, which is the Population Health Information Development Unit. And we're going to look at DSS data, so the Department of Social Services, Job Seeker and Youth Allowance data, and the Job Seeker, the Jobs Queensland data portal and Explorer, as well as their region profiles to look at future job projections by industry and occupation. So in terms of labour force and unemployment statistics, we're going to look at one data source which is collected and collated by the Queensland Treasury, Queensland Government Statisticians Office, that draws information from the ABS, the Labour Force Australia detailed data. However, please keep in mind this data is also available elsewhere through other data platforms and directly through the ABS as well. So we're going to start another demo. I'm going to find Data Point again. And so we're going to look for Queensland Territory, which is also already selected. You can also search under the category function, which will be under labour force and employment. And in the search text, we're going to select labour this time. So you can see that there's the labour and employment regional data source. I'm going to click on that. So for this demo, we're going to look at SA4 level data. Firstly, we're going to look at overall unemployment in the region and then compare it to Queensland. And then we'll look at youth unemployment in the region as well. So this is the landing page. I might scroll in a little bit closer for you. You'll see the labour and employment regional information up the top here. So there's data visualized here on employment growth, which you can see in this visual, unemployment rate and participation rate as well. So we're going to scroll past this visual and look at the report functions. So we're interested in regional labour force reports. So this first one, it's a drop-down menu. When we scroll down, you can see that there will be lots of different regions available with data included. You can also see under the report that it was published on the 21st of August this year, so we know it's updated regularly. These reports are actually updated on a monthly basis. So we're going to scroll down for the July data, and we're going to look for the region of interest, which is Mackay, Whitsunday, the Mackay Isaac Whitsunday SA4, and we're going to click on the PDF. Okay, and so it will open the latest regional labour force report for your region, and the latest data is the July 2025 data. You can find information on the total number of persons employed in the table 1, and I'm going to scroll in again for you as well. So the total number of employed persons, you can find the data on the labour force and not in the labour force, and also the participation rate and the unemployment rate as well. So the number of unemployed persons in July 2025 for the region is the number of employed persons, my mistake. So for July 2025 is 110,200 persons. The number of unemployed persons for the region is 3,300. And the unemployment rate for Mackay Isaac Whitsunday is 2.9%. And that's lower than the Queensland unemployment rate. And you can see that on this visual on the right-hand side here. So the Mackay Isaac Whitsunday unemployment rate as 2.9%, and then the comparison for Queensland, which is 4%. You may also want to know how this compares to the 12 months prior, which is the annual percentage change. So that's in this column here. There's the change in the counts and the change in percent. So the unemployment rate has remained stable. So you can see there's been no change for the last, between the last year. So from 2.9% in July 2024 to 2.9% in July 2025. You can also look at how does this compare for Whitsunday SA4 compared to other regions as well. So if you zoom into figure 2, which I'm going to scroll down for, you can see this visual here on figure 2. And across the 19 SA4s in Queensland, the Mackay-Isaac-Whitsunday region has a lower unemployment rate than the Queensland average, which is this dark green line here across a horizontal line. And it actually has the lowest unemployment rate than any of the other 19 Queensland SA4s. So note, these data and reports are released, like I mentioned, they're released on a monthly basis. So it is worth going into and updating your data that you use regularly. We now know unemployment in Mackay-Isaac-Whitsunday SA4. We could then also ask, does youth employment for the region follow the same trends? So I'm going to go back onto the main screen on Queensland Treasury. And then we're going to look for the second report, which is Regional Youth Unemployment Report. I'm going to click here. And again, you can see it's published on the 21st of August. I'm going to scroll down and find July 2025 and click onto that report. So in this table, we see the SA4 data for each of the SA4 regions in Queensland, and it displays data for the most recent available month of data, which is July 2025 again. And you can see that in this column in the third column here. And it also has a comparison for the previous 12 months, which is July 2024. And then also a calculation of the annual change percentage points. So we locate our region of interest, which is the Mackay-Isaac-Whitsunday. And you can see that the youth unemployment rate is 5.7%, and that is lower than the Queensland rate, which is 9.2%. So youth unemployment rates for the region has actually decreased, and you can see that that's a decrease of 0.3% from 6% in July 2024 to 5.7% in July 2025. And if we compare across regions, Mackay-Isaac-Whitsunday SA4 again actually has the lowest youth unemployment rates of all of the 19 SA4s for July 2025. So if you scroll down this third column, you can see 5.7% is actually the lowest number in the table there. If you want to look at also July 2024, you can see that it had the lowest number, the lowest percentage of youth unemployment across all of the SA4s in July 2024 as well. So I'm going to switch back to my slides. So in summary, the number of unemployed persons for the region is 3,300 persons. The unemployment rate for Mackay-Isaac-Whitsunday SA4 is 2.9% for July 2025, and that's lower than the Queensland, which is currently at 4%. Unemployment rate has remained stable from 2.9%, and that's the same for July 2025 as well. And the youth unemployment rate for the region is 5.7%, which is less than Queensland at 9.2%. And all of this information is really helpful in terms of our evidence for writing our application. So also to note, you can find this information on the Jobs and Skills Atlas, which we'll share in the link to this data source as well in the chat. And there will be useful, this will be useful if your organisation is based outside of Queensland or if you operate across multiple states and territories. Just to note, there are some differences with the unemployment rates for regions reported in the tool. So the Jobs and Skills Atlas uses a 6-month average, whereas the Queensland Treasury reports use the 12-month averages. So the recommendation is generally to use a 12-month rolling average, which is why I selected the Queensland Treasury for the demonstration. But you may also notice some difference in the unemployment rates when you're comparing the data across the different tools. So I just wanted to flag that. The Jobs and Skills Atlas that we shared in the chat, though, has a great visualization feature, and you can look at this data over 1 year or 3 years or 5 years, as shown in the image in the slide as well. So this slide shows the same data that we found in the demo for Whitsunday, including the number of unemployed persons, as well as the unemployment rate and the youth unemployment rate we've included there as well. And so I completed this for the Mackay-Isaac SA4 region, as well as also for Queensland. And you'll notice I've also included SA2 level data here, and the Whitsunday local government area data as well, which is released by the Department of Employment and Workplace Relations, which is the Australian Government Department. These data are for small area labour markets, or SALM, and you should use them with caution. So no SA3 data is available that we know of. And we've included the link in the chat to the SALM, or the small area labour market data, and you can also find that information on Data Point as well. So I'm going to move on to the next example now, which is the learning or earning information. So for the next activity, we're going to be looking at learning and earning data, and that is the number of young people engaged in learning or earning, and the proportion of young people engaged in learning or earning. So for each geography or community we're interested in, and for the learning or earning indicator, the best data source that I found was it's relatively easy to use tool. It's called the FIDO data set, which is published by Torrens University, Australia. I like the data source because it's packaged in a way that's easy accessible, and the data documentation for this product is also quite good. So in Data Point, I'm going to close these tools and take you back to Data Point. Okay, and we're going to find the Torrens University Australia search by agency option. Sorry, I selected the wrong one. Torrens University Australia. You can see that it'll come up the Public Health Information Development Unit, or FIDO. You can also search under the plain search function, searching FIDO. You can also, under the search by category under community services, it will come up as well. So I'm going to click onto that tool. So FIDO has a number of data workbooks available for the whole of Australia, but it is nicely broken down separately by state. So you can use, if you scroll down, you can use this drop-down function, and it will show you each of the states and territories, and we could focus on Queensland. We can focus on small area level geographies. So in this example, we want to look at local government areas. So you can see that that's the second option here, local government areas, and I select the Queensland icon here, which is the blue map, and it's opening up the spreadsheet. It's asking, it's probably best to use as a downloaded file. So I've actually got that already downloaded on my computer that I'll open up now. So we're looking at the local government area data, and I'll just show you here. If we go to the front page, this is what it will look like. It's saying that it's been published in June 2025, so we know that it's updated regularly. And what we're looking for is the table of contents, which is the third tab. And here we're going to search learning, and that will, sorry, it's already kind of found it for me because I was on that earlier. But if you search learning, that comes up there. And so you can click on that. Oops, sorry, cancel. I'm going to click on that hyperlink, and it takes me directly into the relevant learning and earning data that I'm interested in looking at. And I can click onto the sheet file. Here we have the learning and earning data for 15 to 24-year-olds for every local government area in Queensland. So I also now want to find my area of interest, which is Whitsunday. So I'm going to do another search, which is for Whitsunday. And I've already pre-selected and highlighted just so it's easier to see for everyone in the example. So here you'll see that it tells me that there's, so in this column C, there's the learning or earning at 15 to 24-year-olds. And there's 3,198 people that are aged 15 to 24 that are learning or earning in the Whitsunday local government area. It also tells me the percentage, so it's already been calculated for me, which is really nice. So it's 79.8% of people in the Whitsunday local government area. So that means approximately 20.2% are not learning or earning. So 1 in every 5 youth are not learning or earning in this local government area. You can also scroll down the page and it will give you the data for the state data. So for Queensland, we can find that there is 8.3% of people aged 15 to 24 years that are earning or learning. So therefore, that's a lower percentage of proportion, percentage or proportion of youth in the Whitsunday region or local government area that are learning or earning compared to Queensland. So I did also have an example, but I think because of time, I might skip over it. The other example was using the FIDO data tool again, but instead of local government area data, we were going to look at population health area regions, and that is where you can find smaller statistical geography areas like statistical area 3, statistical area 4, or statistical area 2 data available for your region. So that you would access the data in the exact same way. You'd click on the Queensland blue icon map and navigate to the same data tab for learning or earning. So this data I've summarized based on the demo that we just completed. So in summary, we found that for Mackay Isaac Whitsunday, there were 16,769 people aged 15 to 24, and 80%, the people that were learning or earning, that is that count, not a population count, it's the 16,769 people that are learning or earning of that age group. And that equates to 80.1% learning or earning for that age group. And so we included this for each of the regions of interest. So the SA4 data, the SA3 data for Whitsunday, for Bowen Basin North, and for Mackay. I also completed it for the local government area as well, and also for Queensland too. So the meaningful information here is that we now know that there are some variations within the 15 to 24-year-old cohort learning or earning across the communities. And if we wanted to focus our efforts on for young people to transition to learning or earning, perhaps Bowen Basin North or SA3 Bowen Basin North, maybe the area where we could work up and build this and strengthen those opportunities for young people in that area, just because that is the lower percentage at 71.1%. However, it may or may not be part of the service delivery footprint area for the Greater Whitsundays Incorporated organisation, and so they may want to focus on the local government area data instead. And so that's 79.8%, which I showed you in the example, and again mentioning that 20.2% are not learning or earning. So 1 in every 5 youth not learning or earning. So that's good to keep in mind as well. Good to keep in mind as we move on to the next data sets. So the next measures we're going to look at are youth allowance and job seeker data. And unfortunately, these data sets, they aren't visualized and they're only provided in Excel table format, but I'll show you how to search for them. And then we've also visualized them in our slides as well. So if we go back to data point, we can instead this time search for Department of Social Services. And then you'll see 3 data sets that come up for that search. And what we're interested in looking at is there's 2 data sets here. There's a monthly profile And we're also looking at the quarterly data as well. So the monthly profile is a report covering income support payments of job seeker and youth allowance other category, whereas the DSS quarterly data is the payment demographic data set that helps build a more detailed picture of who your target group is and what barriers they might face. And it lists out all of the DSS payments rather than just job seeker and youth allowance. So I guess they're the main differences between the two different options here. So whether you're accessing monthly data or quarterly data, whether you're just looking at job seeker and youth allowance information, or whether you're interested in looking at other payment recipient types as well. So if I show you on my slide, this is how we've visualized them. So the first one that we're looking at is the monthly data, which is available at the SA2, SA3 and SA4 level. So for July 2025, we're looking at the Mackay Isaac Whitsunday SA4 region, and they had 6,050 job seeker payment recipients and 720 youth allowance recipients. And then you can look at that I guess in a drilled down way. So the smaller area regions within the Mackay Isaac Whitsunday region. So these are the SA3s below them. And then there's also a further drop down information about the SA2s as well for the Whitsunday region. So for example, in Mackay SA3, there's 4,030 recipients in Mackay. There's 1,155 recipients in Bowen Basin North. And there's 865 recipients in Whitsunday. And then again, you can look at that disaggregation data even further for the Whitsunday SA3, for example, to see Airlie Whitsunday's SA2 has 545 job seeker payment recipients, and Proserpine has 320 payment recipients. So that's an example of where small level data information is available. And we can also look at that information for youth allowance payment recipients as well. So the next slide we've visualized is the quarterly data, so the second DSS data set, and it gives a breakdown of the number of payment recipients by payment type for the Whitsunday local government area region this time. Again, it's quarterly data, so we've visualized it for June 2025. For the total number of recipients for the Whitsunday LGA. So there was 1,615 if we're looking at job seeker payment recipients, and also 145 for youth allowance other recipients as well. So this next slide summarises what we just found for the two different DSS datasets for the Whitsunday community. So for youth allowance in the first row here, and then also for job seeker payment recipients as well. And I've completed this table for the Whitsunday local government areas, as well as the Whitsunday Isaac Mackay SA4 region, and the relevant SA3s here too. So if we think about those data sets together, we can consider the learning or earning rates for the region, so 79.8% for the Whitsunday local government area, and for the surrounding areas that were between 71.1% and 82.1% in the different SA3s. We considered job seeker and youth allowance data accessed through DSS, including SA4, SA3 and SA2 level, to gain additional insights and perspectives on employment and unemployment in the region. And then the last data set we want to consider is employment trends and projections. So changes in employment trends can generally indicate areas of training need for future growth in healthcare, for example, or construction industries. It can also suggest groups requiring additional support. So for example, different industry transitions as well. So the last measure we're wanting to explore is industry labour market projections to get an indication of the future jobs in the construction industry that's of particular interest for our Whitsunday example. So the data source I'm going to look at for this information is the Jobs Queensland data portal and Explorer. And there's also the region profiles, which is quite useful tool as a quick summary for your region as well. So these are in Data Point. For time purposes, I'm going to skip directly into the tool, but I do recommend you can access it through Data Point as well. So I'm going to close down these other tabs for now because we're finished with them. And this is the Jobs Queensland data portal. There's also a Data Explorer, which you'll see here. And it's a visualized tool, which is great to use to find the data that we're looking for. So you can use the Anticipating Future Skills or AFS data portal and Explorer to identify regional jobs growth projections, and it helps you understand what Queensland's future labour market might look like and what eligible SKU priority skills might be a good match for your community. So we would like to know what we'd like to know is the total number of people projected to be employed in the region to 2027-28. So you can see that if I scroll in, scroll in here, you can see the projected period is here. It's from 2023 to 24 to 2027-28. And then some details about the construction industry and future growth. So the data portal looks like a dashboard with drop-down options and filters or searches by occupation, industry, and region. And the Explorer does the same thing, but you have a side-by-side comparison of two regions. So they include projections, and they're released based on a number of different scenarios. And the projections are calculated again to that 2027 to 28 time period. So in the example, I'm going to include the baseline scenario projection. There's also 3 other scenarios that you'll see within the portal and Explorer tabs. So if you look at the drop-down, there's also here scenario 1 and scenario 2 and scenario 3. We're going to share the methodology and information about those different scenarios in the chat. But I'm going to keep the baseline scenario for this example. And the baseline is business as usual scenario, which is based on the Queensland Government budget paper and Commonwealth and industry forecasts. So the methodology will be in the chat. The tool is also flexible to change the year of the projection end date. So if you look at this drop down, you can select the different financial years here for the next 5 years. So for this example, I'm going to keep it at 2027-28. We're going to select the region, which is the Mackay-Isaac Whitsunday, and close the drop down. And then we're going to look at the industry. And so that's here under all, and we're going to select construction. Just there. Okay, and so you can see the total projected employed persons in the construction industry for the Mackay-Isaac Whitsunday region is 9,860. And then if we select, unselect all industries, I'm going to unselect construction. You can see that this will give you the total projected people employed for your region, which is 119,334. And then you can calculate the proportion of the regional workforce who will be employed in the construction industry based on these projections. So the percentage of the regional workforce is 8.3%. If you select the construction filter again, it can also tell me employment growth in the construction region, which is 1.7%, and net additional jobs, which is 166. And if you hover over the question mark, it'll tell you net additional jobs is the growth in jobs since the first year of modelling minus the jobs from lost from decline. And I can repeat this to extract the Queensland data too, which I won't do because of time. In my slides, I also look at the data for selected occupations of employment. And so to do this, you can use the drop-down function under occupation. And the major category that you'd look at is technicians and trades. And you select that drop-down to look further into find a subcategory, which is called construction trades workers. And you would select that. And that then gives you the occupation data for construction trade workers and the projections for that specific data set as well. So this is a different way to look at data, and it provides a lot of flexibility within the tool to extract the information you're looking for, to understand more about how industries and occupations are classified. And we're going to share you the links with you in the chat as well. So if you find that you don't need this much flexibility within the data, you might prefer to access the data through the Jobs Queensland region profiles. So if I select that, which you can find in Data Point as well, and we search for the Mackay-Isaac-Whitsunday region, and I select that PDF, we can find the total persons employed in the region is projected to be 119,334, which is also what we found in the portal tool. And it also tells you the total employed in the construction industry. If you scroll down, it says 9,860. The percent of regional workforce is 8.3%. And employment growth for the construction industry is projected to be 1.7%. from 2023-24 to 2027-28. The report doesn't tell you the number of projected new jobs for that industry though, so you'd need to use the data portal for that. Okay, so this next slide summarises what we just found for the Jobs Queensland data portal and the Jobs Queensland region profiles for the Mackay-Isaac-Whitsunday SA4 region. We've completed this information for the SA4 region and then also for Queensland. There is no data available for the local government area or SA3 areas that we know of. So this table summarises all the data that we found for this exercise, which could now be used for the grant application through the whole webinar. So we found data on demographics, we found data on young people learning and earning in the community to give an indication on who isn't. And we looked at unemployment and youth unemployment for the community and approximate number of people accessing youth allowance and job seeker payments. We looked at anticipated industry projections for the construction industry and by occupation in Whitsunday region. So we were able to find the most data at the Queensland level and for the SA4 regions. And there was some missing data for local government areas as well as SA3 level data for the Jobs Queensland skills and industry projections, as well as limited SA2 data for some of the key indicators. So based on data availability, I'd suggest looking at the SA4 data within the grant application. However, if you're really looking at refining your project to a smaller area within the Whitsunday community, there was some of the SA2 data we accessed, which then complements the the LGA data and can help evidence your application. So this is the summary from this information. So for example, we located some SA2 data for LA Whitsundays and also for Proserpine, as well as job seeker and youth allowance data for those regions as well, those smaller suburb level area data sets. There are other measures you could also consider, but we chose not to include in the presentation for time or data availability. For example, in the bottom of the screen here, there's the current vacancy rates by occupation, which is available by SA4. There's current employment by occupation for SA4s. There's monthly labour market dashboards, which is the very last link on the screen. And this data set I only found yesterday, so I haven't included it in the demo, but I'd really recommend exploring this tool by Jobs and Skills Australia. It includes data visualizations on job seeker and youth allowance data, as well as unemployment rates by local government area and share of employment by top industries as well. So you can access that data dashboard in your own time. There's also data for young people not in education, employment, or training, which is also referred to as NEET, who are young people considered disengaged from working on training. However, we could only find this data for remoteness areas. And again, we'll share the links in the chat for you to explore in your own time. Lisa.
Thank you, Amy. So the other areas to look for data are whether or not your organisation has a range of data that could be used. So often there are lots of sources of data internally that people might use. So you could look to research reports that your organisation has commissioned or other organisations have commissioned, and particularly where that contains data relevant to your proposal. There might be particular projects or project reports that you've produced in the recent past in particular, to provide to government agencies regarding other grant funding that contains useful data, such as demand-related data for particular target groups or services provided. And there might be project or program outcome data. For example, you may be able to use data from existing programs within your organisation to demonstrate your capacity to project manage and deliver on the SKU proposal. So if you've delivered and reported on a SKU project in the past, or if you have a current SKU project through which you have been gathering data, then you may wish to submit a report as evidence and or summarise data in the current program to provide indicative data around positive outcomes. You may have participant testimonials, interviews, or interviews with participants, or employers, for example, that can add evidence and weight to your current application. And I guess the bottom line is you're seeking to utilise all current intelligence or data that you have to evidence your current proposal, to provide the department with the utmost confidence that this is an evidence-based proposal and that you are capable of delivering on it. So it's important to note that I guess you need to be cognizant of any issues with regard to consent for the use of confidential information or data, including testimonials, etc. Back to you, Amy.
Okay, thanks, Lisa. I'm just mindful of time. So we've got a few more slides to go through. If you're happy for me to continue, I think we'll probably need about 10 more minutes, if that's okay. Just wanted to flag that because I know there's chats in the comments in the chat, and so just mindful of time. So sorry, everyone, for going a bit over time today.
Thanks, Amy.
All good. If you're still looking for ideas on where to find data sets, another suggestion is to explore the QCOSS community data profiles. You can find the data profiles by locating the QCOSS website again under our work and navigating to data and then community data profiles. So the profiles provide an overview on selected indicators that align with QCOSS policy focus areas again. So housing, youth justice, living affordability, women's equality, children and young people, and community services. The data relates to communities involved in QCOSS town hall events. So you may or may not find a data profile for your specific community. They are made available for other additional local government areas of interest, informed by feedback we receive from community services. Data is presented at a localised level where possible, dependent on data availability and access. So for the next 3 slides, I'm going to provide examples of what data are included in the community data profiles, noting that the data profiles are updated on an annual basis and the information included may not be the most recently released data, but it can give you a snapshot of where you could go to find more up-to-date information. So in the community data profiles, we publish key figures relating to the demographics of the region. So the Whitsunday region figures are in the ochre red and the Queensland figures are in the orange or yellow colour. And that's to understand how the region compares to the state level data side by side. So there is estimated resident population of 40,744 in the Whitsunday local government area, projected to reach 50,512 people in the next 25 years. We have comparison figures, for example, on median age, as well as the percent of persons aged 65 years and over for Whitsunday and for Queensland. And there's also the proportion of persons born overseas, which you'll find here, and that's 16.3% compared to 22.7% for Queensland. There's also a higher proportion of First Nations persons in Whitsunday at 5.8% compared to 4.6% for Queensland. There's also examples of economic indicators, including income levels and household income, as well as the unemployment rate again. So Whitsunday LGA has a higher median income level, it has a higher median personal income level at 795 compared to 787 per week. And also the local government area, which we found has a lower unemployment rate, 2.7% compared to 4.0%. This is from the Government Statistician's Office again, that same Queensland Regional Profiles tools that we were showing earlier in the presentation. And that data was extracted on the 14th of April 2025. So again, it's a little bit older than if you go to the direct data source yourself. We also include data in the profiles in relation to housing and rental affordability. So we access these data for all dwellings across local government areas and in Queensland. So for Whitsunday local government area, the current median rent is $550 as at June 2025. The median rent for Whitsunday, you can see in the red, has been generally increasing each year since June 2019. The region experienced increases from 320 in June 2019 to 550 in June 2025, representing an overall increase of 72% in this time frame. We also look at data from the AIHW, or Australian Institute of Health and Welfare Specialist Homelessness Services data collection cubes, with the most available data being 2023 to 2024 financial year. These data are broken down by age group on the right-hand side and also for gender underneath. For Mackay, Isaac, Whitsunday region, we know that there was 3,565 persons accessing specialist homelessness services in 2023-24. In the last 12 months, there was the number of people accessing services decreased by 4%. And also when you break down this by gender, you can see there's a gendered element here as well, with more women accessing these services compared to men in 2023-24, with 54% of females accessing SHS services compared to 46% of males. You can also review this information by the age group time series, and the majority of people accessing specialist homelessness services were in the younger cohorts for the Mackay, Isaac, Whitsunday region. So 25% were in the 0 to 9 years category, and 19% were in the 10 to 19 year category, and 15% were in the 20 to 29 year category as well. Lisa?
So here's an example of an industry need in the construction area. So the data sourced from the data portal provided by Jobs Queensland indicates a 1.7% growth in future skills need in this area. And Construction Skills Queensland have advised that there has been a previous issue with limited skilled workforce, resulting in major infrastructure projects starting or due to start. So this is situated within the context of population growth projections at 1.2% per year and existing anticipated housing stress in the Whitsunday region. So data could indicate that there are multiple barriers to employment, including things such as chronic health problems, housing and homelessness, marginalisation, and access, as it is a regional and remote service delivery area.
Okay, so the last step is really around summarizing the data. So step 4 is then what you do with all this information that you've gathered and then pulling it together in a succinct way using descriptive statistics, perhaps tables and charts if the application platform allows you to do that. So I've also included here local understandings and knowledge, which could be captured through qualitative data or methodologies like feedback from the community or service workers, from interviews, as well as other service level information that would be relevant to your submission, like the number of clients accessing your services and what proportion of them are 15 to 24 years, if that's relevant too.
Thanks, Amy. So as you're gathering your data, it's good practice to be summarising your data sources once you are confident that they're the sources you intend to use in your proposal. This is going to save you work down the line once it comes to putting the responses back to against the assessment criteria. So ensure that you're noting data sources as you gather these. It's going to save you a lot of time down the track. When it comes to confirm or update your data, it will be a relatively straightforward exercise if you've noted the sources. If you haven't noted the sources, it could be a very big challenge for you. So as indicated earlier in the presentation, consider matching the data with the relevant assessment criteria throughout the process of pulling the application together. And again, this is going to make it easier as you're moving forward through the process of responding to the selection criteria. Thanks, Amy.
So the very last step is summarizing the data in a succinct way using descriptive statistics. So I won't go through this example now for time, but you can read through how we've summarized it together with some of those key statistics that we went through in the demonstration. I'm going to hand it back to Lisa, who will explain how this all relates to the original project idea for the grant application.
Thank you, Amy. So this is how we'd suggest you could summarise the information in your response to the assessment criteria 2, servicing community and industry needs. So the funder is asking you to articulate what the project will achieve, what the ongoing community benefits will be, and what the level of need is in the particular is for the particular project in the community, and how the project aligns to local labour market needs and employment trends. For example, participation rates, unemployment rates, current vacancy rates, industry growth, etc. So as again, we talked about earlier, the department expects organisations to have researched their local labour market. So it's a suggestion only that's offered on the slide, which you can have a bit of a look at later. Just moving to our top, sorry. So just looking at summarising, I guess, our top tips for using data in your SKU application. So when community organisations demonstrate the value of their services and capability using data, it demonstrates the data capability of the sector as a whole, and we have a stronger evidence base to better advocate for the needs of the sector and the communities that we are working with. So we strongly encourage organisations to use data to strengthen their SKU applications. This is very much favoured by the department. And to recap, some of the top tips for using data in your application include using local data wherever possible, specific to your local community and communities that you're intending to serve. Focus your data on the target group you intend to work with. Compare data within your region. Look at data in similar regions or surrounding regions. Compare to the Queensland data to highlight whether there are differences in different communities and greater or lesser need in communities. Understand the language and indicators for what you want to measure and access the source data dictionaries and notes. Use current data and reference the date and the data source. Use our list of suggested open data sources and update your applications when new data becomes available. And I guess an important point, that this whole presentation hopes to serve is for you to not fear data. So look at QCOSS's guide and the frequently asked question resources for support. Contact our data people here, Amy and Nadia, for support if you need assistance and guidance in this area. And definitely give it a go. Include data in your application. So this really, I think, perhaps Amy, do you want to just talk to that final slide?
Yes. So if you're interested in the content like today's webinar, you may want to join our Research Evaluation Network. You can access our Research Evaluation Network webinar recordings and resources on the Community Door Research and Evaluation Resources Hub page. We also have a YouTube channel playlist where you can catch up on all the previous research and evaluation webinars as well. So across our networks, we also have 2 upcoming additional webinars in September that may be of interest, and Nadia has shared those in the chat for you now with the details about those events.
Thank you. So that brings us to the end of today's webinar. We ordinarily would do an evaluation at the end of the webinar, but we'll send that out, given that we're over time now, we'll send that out in a post-event email for you to complete. And really just want to thank you for coming along to today's webinar. Hope you got a lot out of the webinar. Again, you'll get a recording, so please feel free to watch it back if there are any elements that you are unfamiliar with or need to recap on. And yeah, so thank you again. Thank you, Amy and Nadia, for joining today as well. And we hope to see you soon.
Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your week. Thanks again for joining, and apologies that we did go over time today as well. So take care.